the Inventor final exam. In this exam, this is actually a review. We're going to go through how to complete this exam that we have here using Autodesk's Inventor 2015. As you can see, what this is actually is a clock assembly. And if I rotate this, this is our goal, is to create this drawing that you see here of the clock assembly. And then we're going to go ahead and print it out and turn it in. And the only part that you have to make is actually the clock bezel. The remainder of the parts are already given to you. So if we go by the instruction set here, the first thing is to model the clock body with 100 points. You can see it's an 8-inch diameter. There's a recess that's 7 inches, another recess that's 6.5, and then there's a bolt circle here of 5 inches, and actually that's for the digits on the clock. And then there's a hole that's a 1/2 inch diameter. And then we have it stepped here, and I have it dimensioned manufacturing wise as well as engineering. So let's take a look at building that clock. I'm going to go to Inventor. I'm going to start a new part file. Just the standard part here. Since a clock sits on usually on a wall, in this case this is what we would do, we would be best off to probably sketch this on the XY plane. So we could just click up here on Start 2D Sketch and select the XY. I'm going to go ahead, and there's several ways you could model this. I'm going to start off first with the 8-inch diameter, and then at the center there, a 0.5-inch diameter. So we can actually model in the void in the center while we extrude. So we hit Finish Sketch and go to Extrude. Don't try and put too much into this at once, remember, because those are all at different levels. And in this case, the clock thickness is 0.75. So the extrusion will be 0.75. Right away, I would recommend putting the fillet in. And the fillet is 0.25. And just select this edge on the front and hit Apply. Now you could go ahead and select this face for the recess, and this is where the lens is going to fit into. So we'll select this face, and this just drops down to 7.5 inches to the diameter. So again, we use the circle tool, and we just draw it on the front face. And then, and actually, let's just make sure that the print here, that's correct. Oh, in this case, actually, I did make a mistake. It's 7 inches in diameter, not 7.5. Just going to double click on that, just type in 7. That gives us a little ridge there. Now we hit Finish Sketch, and we go to Extrude. Now the extrusion depth here, if we take a careful look at the print, indicates that the first, here's 0, which is the very front of the clock, so it goes 0.125 deep. So we're going to go ahead and select Remove or Cut Material, and 0.125. Hit OK. It should automatically start cutting backwards. If not, remember you could rotate it or flip the arrow or reverse it on the little extrusion option. Okay, now the common mistake that people make, especially if they're not used to reading this type of a print where we have ordinate dimensions, is that they don't subtract the 0.125 from the next depth, which is 0.5. So either you need to know to subtract that, or here's the workaround that might just be easier so you don't have to have any mathematical errors. So I usually recommend just keep this as your 0. Select this little ridge here, this face that's there, and start your sketch. Draw the next recess, which is, in this case, needs to be 6.5. I go to the Dimension tool. In this case, I clicked a little too quickly there. Now we go to Finish Sketch, and then go to Extrude. And again, it's Remove Material. And then you could type in that explicit value of 0.5 versus doing the subtraction. That way it eliminates the mistake that I commonly see where people end up cutting through this once they cut the backside. And that's not fun when you're taking a final exam. try and sit there and figure out what you just did wrong. So to avoid the arithmetic errors, I would suggest selecting this face to sketch on. Okay, I'm going to flip it around the back side and select the backside face now. And this is actually the 7.5 dimension that I accidentally put in earlier. Again, just to show you on the print, this is what we're looking at, the 7.5 on this edge. Now this cutout is 0.125. So we go to Finish Sketch, Extrude, Remove Material, and 0.125. If it goes through, that means that you probably made that arithmetic error I was talking about, where you didn't subtract 0.125 from the 0.5. So be aware, 0.375 then. You would have to change this cutout depth, and you could do that by by actually clicking on the edge of it, and you'd be able to hit Edit Extrude, and you would be able to type in, instead of, if you got 0.5 there, you could go ahead and type in 0.375. Or you could edit it from the feature tree here, which would be Extrude 3, and you get that same little edit extrude. You can do that. So if you have it going through, that means that you made that arithmetic error. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and put the little digits on the clock. So I'm going to select this face here. And this one's fine because these are just 0.1 high. So we just hit Create Sketch. And we're going to first just put in the little circle here. Okay, and the diameter for this, I'm going to go ahead and just put it in and see what we have here. 0.375, 12 places. Alright, and then also you'll notice I have this dimension, what looks kind of awkward. It's 5 inches diameter. It's like a bolt circle I put in. So remember, half of that, if you're looking for the radius or the distance from the center, would be half that, so that's 2.5. Or you could draw the bolt circle if that's what you prefer. But this might be easier just to go ahead and dimension from the center points. And just make sure you put in 2.5. Okay, we're going to hit Finish Sketch, and now go to Extrude. And in this case, it looks as though we might not have centered that. So let me hit Cancel. Okay. To make sure it's centered, you could just select both points. Actually, you could go to we edit the sketch. So just right click on it, Edit Sketch, and let's go and just make sure it's aligned. So we'll go ahead and use our vertical constraint between both centers. Okay. That's fine, remember, because we have that could be 9 o'clock, or we could make sure that it's horizontal, or whichever one you want. But in this case, this will work fine. So I'm just going to hit green check. And now we could go ahead and extrude that. And that just is a depth of 0.1. Now we could use the circular pattern on that. Select the extrusion, go to circular, and go ahead and rotation axis. I'm going to go ahead and select, let's go first for the feature. Let's just select the extrusion again there. Okay, on the rotation axis, we could select this outer face or the inner face, any of these. And make sure it's set to 12 and 360. Hit OK. I'm going to go home here, and we can see the clock upright. Okay, now on the back side, there's some details, and this is where you're going to use the mirror tool. So we select the backside face, Starter Sketch. Okay, and let's just get this upright. So back says back, we know that that's vertically. Okay, and at this point we're going to go ahead and we're going to draw some center lines. So you click on Line and set Construction, draw a vertical center line. Okay. And actually we'll draw a horizontal one too. And these are going to be used for mirroring. So we take our circle and draw the circle in over here. And this is a 0.125. Actually, I think it's a 0.25 diameter. And then it gets dimensioned 1 inch off those center lines. So dimension the center point to each of those center lines, 1 inch. And what I did here is I neglected to turn off the construction tool. And so you can see it's dashed, and you want it to be solid, so, or an object line. So I actually hit escape if that happens to you. Click on that circle and make sure you turn off construction. There we go. Now you can see it's solid. We hit finish sketch, and we just we should probably mirror that here. We can either mirror it in the sketch. I have the sun lines, might as well mirror it now in the sketch. Let me go back to the back here. Alright, at this point we could go to mirror. The feature that we want to mirror, let's just click on that. It's going to be the circle. Oops, I'm sorry. We need to edit the sketch, so right click on that sketch and edit it. I went past what I was thinking. Okay, once we're in edit sketch, then we bring up the mirror tool for the actual sketch geometry versus I was in the 3D model there. So select circle. You can only do one at a time, so select mirror line and select this and hit apply. So I selected the vertical mirror line. Now I could go ahead and select both circles, click on mirror line, and then select the horizontal center line that you drew and hit apply. And there we have it. Now we could hit finish sketch, and then we could extrude. And select those bosses. And they are a height of 0.25. And there we have the clock bezel completed. Make sure you save it. And I'm saving everything to my desktop, and I have a folder here called Inventor Final. And go ahead and you can just drop it in there. And I suggest making this folder in advance. Or you can make it now if you wanted to. And I'm just going to call this the bezel. Okay. What I did earlier is I went to the Bertanen 1 web page, went to part files, and here you'll see final exam parts. You just click on final exam parts. It brings up these parts. You go up here to download. Now I'm using Google Chrome. If you're using a different browser, it might be a little different, but basically there's download. It'll come up down here. Once you see that download, you click on this little arrow here, and you can hit show in folder. It shows them. You just double click on it. Okay, so for example, here it is. Double click on it, and then you see these things. These are still compressed. So you just shift select. As you can see, this is a zip file. That's a compressed file. We want to uncompress them, so you select them all, or you could select one, Control A, and then right click, copy, and then I created a folder on my desktop, and then I went ahead and pasted them in there. So that's what you could do. Okay, so now once you have them in the folder, this is what they're going to look like. I just went here, paste, boom, pop them in. Also, you could increase, this is Windows 7, here you could adjust the pictures so you can actually see what they look like there. And that's helpful. Alright, now we're going to start the assembly. So once we have this saved, now we could go to iProbe here, and new, and standard IAM, which is an assembly. First thing we do is we go to place, and hopefully it will remember your Inventor Final folder that you created. And we first drop in the bezel. Hit open. And if you zoom out here, you could just go ahead and click to drop it in anywhere you'd like. And remember, it brings up additional ones if you want them. Just hit escape. There's another option, by the way. You could always right click and you could place grounded to origin. That's actually better than what I just did there. So, oops. And then you don't have to ground it. There I actually grounded it. So I'm going to delete the first one that I dropped in. So this is actually on the origin. That's really good if you have it on the origin. Okay, and then it's grounded. If you don't have it grounded, or if you just clicked like I did initially, right click, and you'll find an option on the list. There's grounded right there. Make sure it's grounded, just so it doesn't spin when you attach everything to it or move around. We'll go back to place. And again, here, if you want to see these, you could go to medium icons. There you can see little pictures of them. My recommendation is go to the chrono housing, click on that, hit open, and just drop that back here. Click to drop it, and again, hit escape. All right, at this point, we're going to go to constrain. So click on constrain, and we're going to go ahead and we could select this outside surface. Or if you want, you can select the hole. It's not as easy though. You want the outside surface until you see that little center line in the middle, or the axis. But you could select axis if this pops up. Now you could shift and rotate the middle button. Find this axis of this post. Click on that. Now, unfortunately, it has a tendency to go in backwards. So remember, there's the flush option. And in this case, unfortunately, it's not doing what we'd hoped, so I'm going to hit cancel there. So what we're going to do is I'm going to rotate it first into a closer position. Go to rotate, get it like this. Make sure those two prong holes are at the top. Okay. I'm going to hit escape. Now we'll go back to constraint and select those. There we go. Now it pops in pretty close to where we want it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drag this out a bit. And make sure you go up here to home and just make sure that those two holes at the top are at the top. Otherwise it might come upside down. Again, you can use the move or you can just drag it around. Okay. Again, if everything's moving, remember you have to ground this. You right click on it and find grounded. But what we're going to do is we're going to go to another constraint here, and I'm going to select the surface here so I get that axis to appear. Click on that hole, and then find the related hole over here. Make sure you get the axis for that. That will align it. Hit apply. And then finally, you could align this face flush to the back face of the clock. Hit apply and OK. You could hit cancel once you hit apply. Go back home, and if you want, actually, if you go to front, you could go to, just to verify this is correct, go to view, and you could turn on shaded with hidden edges if you want. And you should see the two holes at the top here. If these are to the side or the bottom, my suggestion is you could edit it and edit those mates. But just as an easier point, again, this is your first class, you could just delete the clock bed, the chrono housing, and reinsert it how I showed you. Okay, I'm going to go back to view, turn off, go back to shaded with edges there. And go to front. All right, the next thing we're going to drop in, go back to assemble, go to place, and we'll go ahead with the hour hand. Hit open. Get that close in proximity to those little sleeves that you have there. Just click, drop it out there. Hit escape once you got one in. Go to constraint, and again with this, we just go ahead and make sure. We could actually select the faces first. This isn't a bad idea. I'm going to select this face to the black sleeve face. There we go. Hit apply. And then you can select this outer or this inner face. Make sure you get the center line of the axis in the center. And then to the white sleeve, the outside. Hit apply. We'll go ahead and insert our next one. And I don't really care what time it says it is on here. I'm just going to verify on your print though. I'm going to drop this one in. So it doesn't really matter if mine says 3 o'clock or yours says 4. It might be a sign that you might have done it differently. That's about it. Hopefully not wrong. But let's go to constraint again. And again, we'll do that little trick. We'll select this flat face to the white sleeve flat face there. Apply. And then the hole or this outer face, to make sure you get the axis, to the gray post. Okay, now we can put the lens in. So again, we go to Place, find the lens, open that up, just drop it out here, hit Escape after you got one in, go to Constraint, and select, actually, in this case, you're best off selecting the flat. And so you might have to rotate to see where the convex surface is, because that's what you're looking for. That's this inside face. So I just verified them. I rotated it back. I'm getting the backside face. And then I'm going to align that to this face right here. Okay. And just verify that the lens is bulging out. You don't want it inverted. And then you could hit this flip switch to flip it flush. Okay, now we could go ahead and hit apply. And we have to select this ridge on the outside here. And then you could go to the outside of this ridge, which is the axis. And hit apply and cancel. And now, because it's transparent, it's kind of hard, so you might have to rotate it the other direction. And there we go. We can see that the lens is popping out or bulging out. If it's not, delete it and reinsert it. That's probably the easiest thing to do, unless you're a little bit more familiar with this. You could then flip it around too. Okay, let's go back to home, make sure it looks good. Now we need to add a couple things on the back side. So rotate it around, go back to place. We're going to need 2 bolts, so go ahead and select bolt, hit open. Drop it close in proximity to these holes. Actually, this one, let's drop a little higher. Hit escape. Escape. And also go to place, and we'll just get everything in here. Let's go to the bracket and open. And just get that over there too. Hit escape. Okay, I'm just going to move this over a little bit. Now, again, I don't want it to flip upside down and have that issue before, so free rotate's very useful. You can just click on the part and get it to where the angle is flush, or kind of looking like it's aligned to that. And hit escape. And so we're kind of getting it close in proximity and position. Now we go to constraint. Now you could select this face here, rotate it around with the shift key, and then select the bottom face of this. Okay, looking good. I'm going to hit apply. Now I'm going to hit cancel for a second here, and I'm going to move this around a little bit, just grabbing it with my left mouse button, just to kind of get it close. And now we could go back to constraint and get that axis of this hole on the bracket, and then get the axis of the hole on the actual chrono housing. And apply, and just do the same over here. Get the axis of this hole, and then the axis on the chrono housing. Okay, let's get those bolts in. And with the bolts, it's the same thing. We might want to rotate them a little bit. Might just be a little easier so you don't get too scared here. Okay, like rotate both of these. So kind of upright like that. Not that you have to do it. Remember, there's that little flip switch, but you can see sometimes you run into problems with it where you might have done something wrong and you didn't realize it. Okay, I'm going to first select the axis here. Actually, you might be better off selecting the underside face, just so we don't lose the part in the part. That face to this face. Okay. And here we've got something going on. Let's hit cancel there. Let's try that one more time. For some odd reason, that constraint didn't go as I planned here. Let's select that face. Okay, it's rather odd. Let me hit cancel once again. Alright, not sure why that looks like it's going on. It might be a visual error or operator on my part. I'm going to go ahead and just try and get these in here, align this way. We'll see if we can get those flush then. Let's try that now. This face to this face. It's not saying that it's offset. Okay, it looks like it's a visual error because as soon as I hit apply, it goes ahead and it shows that it's flush to the top. Just like that one. See, it looks a little bit lower. Maybe it's just me. Okay, they look good. Go back home, and there we have our clock assembly completed. And go ahead and save that as the clock assembly. And hit save. Just hit OK there. All right, now we need to go, and the final is to make the drawing. So let's go over here to New, select Standard, Standard Eye Drawing, double click. It brings up a C-size sheet. I prefer, in our class at least, draw it on an A size just so we can print it out easily. You could scale the C size down. It just makes it a little harder to see some of the text and the dimensions. So in this case, we actually don't have any dimensions, so I suppose it really doesn't matter. But we're going to go over here to Drawing Resources, Sheet Format, A size landscape, double click. Make sure that this does say that you're looking for the clock assembly IAM that you just named. Hit OK, and there's our clock. Alright, and what we're going to do is we're going to also change this border size here. So let's go ahead and the default, not the border, I should say, let's go ahead and delete that. Okay, and now we need to reinsert it, so we could go to title blocks, and you're going to go with the A and C. Insert. There we go. Okay, so here we have, we've updated those items. Now we're going to go ahead and just double click on the border of the clock. And let's set this to, I believe, half scale. It's going to maybe work a little bit better here. Okay, even that's a bit big. We'll make it a third. Also over here, in this case, actually, we do want this to be hidden lines, so we're going to leave that on. We could go to display options and just turn on tangent edge foreshorten. That's about it on this one. Okay, let's take a closer look at the print. And we're looking to recreate this one. And actually, it looks like in one of the last one, I went to a 5th scale on this. So if we go back there, just to make sure we're on task here, let's change it to a 5th. Okay, now I could go ahead and we're going to make sure under place views, we're going to go ahead and we want a left view. Now, as far as the isometric view, I will have to go ahead and put that in because I neglected to do that earlier. So, because we have to explode that. And I'm just going to right now create that one view there. Let's take a closer look at the print. Okay, we need a section and a detail view. Oh, and a bottom view. Okay, again, you could click on that, project it, and give yourself a bottom view. Create. Now, section view, select the view we want, go to section, align yourself to the center of the clock, get a little bit below it, click and draw it all the way through, and a little bit above it. Click, and then right click, continue. Drag off your section just over here to the right. Click to drop it. Okay, now you need a detail view. Click on detail, and this little area here, you're just going to click and drag out a nice circle. Not that big. Click here to drop the detail view. Now the text might be a little bit big here for the size, so remember you could always go to the Manage and double click on Styles Editor, or just one click, sorry. And then over here you have all the standards that you could adjust. So for example, if we're looking for the notes and such, like we have dimensions, there's let's see here, the notes should be on there. Okay, so just make sure you're in text, and then label text. And down here, it will probably say 0.18, which is the default. Go ahead and change it to 0.100. And then hit done. It's going to say, hit save and then hit done. and then that should update your text. Okay, now we do want to go ahead and make the exploded view. Before we do that, we'll go ahead and we'll add in the parts list though, since we're here. So let's go to annotate, find parts list, select the view, and make sure it says clock assembly IAM. That's what we're using. And OK, and OK. Just drop that in the upper left corner there. Okay, let's get our name in too before we forget that. Just over here, click, and go ahead and put in your name. Try and make sure it's centered a little bit there. Okay, now to go back, and we need to make the exploded view, because otherwise to add an isometric view by itself here isn't relevant. So let's go ahead and add that. So we're going to go back to the assembly to do that. So down here we just go to the clock assembly, and we go to iPro, new, and we need a presentation file. Create some exploded view. So IPN, hit create. And go to create new, make sure it's CSIAM assembly, hit OK. And now from here, we're going to go ahead and tweak components. So we're going to click on tweak, and we could select, like for example, the lens here. And we just grab the actual arrow, drag it out and away, click on the next part. Oops, in this case, grab too much there. Let's go back to clear. Now we can select this part, drag it out. Sometimes you have to drag it twice. Oops, grab the wrong one there. Clear that. This part. Go to direction. Okay, keep grabbing the wrong part. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Basically, what I was doing wrong here is you gotta go in the sequence here that you see direction, component, trail, origin. So we click on direction, and in this case, we'll go perpendicular to this face that we selected. Then you select the component, so it's one additional click on the component you want to move. Then you could go ahead and go to trail. Now we should be able to drag that. Okay, and there you can see it's actually creating a little trail there. Hit clear. Let's go to the next component. Again, direction will be based off that face. Click on the component, and now we should be able to just drag that off. You don't need to hit trail. Okay, let's go with, let's rotate this around a little bit. Get these components. I'm going to select all of them. Let me hit clear there just to make sure. In this case, the direction will be off the back face. Select all these components, and now grab that, drag it out. Let's go rotate it back here. Okay, hit clear. Now let's go back. Click on direction, this top face of this bracket, and then select the components. In this case, we want the bolts and the bracket. I could drag that up. And again, hit clear, select the bracket by itself, select the bracket again, and then grab that little arrow down a little bit there, just to separate the parts. Clear, and then close. Let's go back here and go home. And there it is. Let's go ahead. Actually, in this case, we should probably drag this out a little bit further. You can always grab the little dots that you see there. We don't want any of them touching each other. And so anytime you go over the little lines to see a green dot, you can drag them to relocate them if you don't like what you see. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and hit save. and just save it to your Inventor file. Hit OK or yes to all. Now let's go back to our clock assembly, and now we could insert that view. So we go to Place Views, Base View. We want to find, there it is, Assembly 1 IPN. That's the one we just created. And we want it in the ISO top right, I believe. Let's just take a look here. There we go. Click to drop it. And then hit Escape. And I'll click on the view. We're going to go ahead and add the balloons. So if we go to Annotate, Balloons, you'll see Auto Balloon. Select the view. Let's go ahead and add them manually here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and click on that. Get the lens here. Just have a few operator error issues here today. And one more for the bracket. Okay, one last time, double check your print to make sure it looks pretty close. It looks as though that scale's a little bit larger on that particular view. So you might want to adjust that. Here, let's get back to Place Views. Double click on the view. Let's see if we go 1/3. Turn on the display options, make sure foreshorten is on. And a little bigger than I'd like. Maybe a quarter would be better. Let's see if it can move these over. Maybe it'll turn out. I'm not too picky, just as long as it's not over. Nothing's like touching things. Like these, make sure they're pushed in. Still a little too tight. So just double click on the view and make it a quarter scale. There we go. At this point, everything looks good. Go ahead and print it out. So go to File and Print. Go ahead and print it through. And that completes the final exam.